You put your phone away, Ken?
Yeah.
Ken Park, everybody, on the wonderful Rock Talk show here from Setting the Space Oktane Media Studio in Kingston, Massachusetts.
Nice,
and thanks for coming on the show.
Oktane East Coast.
Octane, always East Coast. You guys are in Florida.
Oh, we're in the west coast of Florida.
Can I say we?
Yes, of course. We,
I feel
baby.
I am part of the we now.
You are part of the we.
W-E, not W-I-I.
Yeah.
So Nintendo doesn't have anything.
No, I hate we, in fact, because, you know, every time I enter in all my credentials on the health app, it says that I'm obese, and it pisses me off.
Is that the Wii, the video game? Like
Yeah.
the tennis?
Yeah.
You have to go obese on
Yeah,
that?
you like give them your like height and weight and everything, and all of a sudden it creates an avatar for you. Mine is always this
Plump,
rotund
juicy,
obese. It says
juicy.
obese on it. Makes you feel terrible.
Your emoji that comes up on my phone is quite interesting.
Obese as well?
No. It's just like, it looks like a little kid with a goatee.
Well,
you know?
thank you.
So.
I tried to age it, but it doesn't really do very well. So.
Well, today's show, we've got Greater Good here, which is
God.
a fantastic local beer.
So good.
So good. The percentage is right on the can. They mean business, right?
Yeah,
here?
12%.
You have the 12. I'm going to be taking you back to your hotel, your residence.
I can't
in
be accountable for what I might say right now.
That's okay. That's where the good, juicy stuff. That's what Barbara Walters' trick was. She brought Evergreen.
Really?
And then she got people crying.
Are you being serious?
No.
Okay, because that would
Maybe, I don't know
that
her
would have been
secrets.
some incrable inside baseball.
That was Bill
right there.
Cosby's secret.
Well,
that's what he did.
He wasn't shooting much.
No,
Thank God. If cell phones were around when Bill Cosby was doing his shtick.
Yep, I know. Anyway, Ken Park.
Wow, we really out of the gate with strength.
Ken Park, you might recognize the name. And I was actually, this is an honest question. I know you, so a lot of the questions I might already kind of know the answers. But I was thinking to myself, when it comes to skateboarding, right? You know Tony Hawk. I don't know if any of the other names. Ken Park, before I met you, I said, is it Ken Park the skater? I mean, you're a popular name in skating.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I'd like to think that I left somewhat of a mark on skating.
Real pretty and neat, but it's neat in all the boards.
No, I want the whole body. I want skateboarding.
Okay, you want the whole body?
I want this artsy fartsy stuff.
That's him. He's not afraid of it. That's him.
You know, there's a saying, it's like I skated amongst giants. I mean, real giants.
In a time when it was just coming out, like
Yeah.
it was innovative.
And I achieved things that I'm super proud of. I mean, you know, for 2.5 years straight, I was 7th in the world, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, you know, I skated with Tony every day. You know, and I skated with Gator every day. And I skated with Chris Miller every day. I mean, these are huge names, people that I literally would watch skate and say they were made to do this. I was more of I worked my butt off to try to, you know, achieve what I could achieve. I went through a lot of adversity as far as like, you know, my peers. There are some peers, Tony and I got along fantastic the whole time. His dad used to drive me to the skate park, so we would spend a lot of time together. And he's just like one of those guys that whatever he would have chosen to be in his life, he would have been a success. The whole family's a success. They're the most incredible family I've ever met. The parents were just so supportive. I probably learned as much about how to be a parent from Tony's parents as I did from my own. You know, it's like they were just... His dad would drive him to the skate park and back, and he would just stay at the skate park, and you know, and he ended up getting involved because there was no competition series. He ended up getting involved and took a ridiculous amount of flack for being like the president of the National Skateboard Association, and everyone was like, if Tony wasn't as good as Tony was, people would have thought that there was like some jerry-rigging going on, right? But no, Tony was
skating was you were outlaws. Right? I mean, you know, like if you were skating on, you know, the steps of the
some
public
were bigger
library
outlaws than others, but
But I mean, just the act of skating in public spaces, like on rails at the public library.
No, nobody understood anything about skateboarding. And so, like, you know, I would tell people I'm a professional skateboarder, and they'd laugh. They thought it was a joke. Like they literally thought I was joking.
Until they
and then
saw
I'm
your
like,
bank
no,
account
I
or
just
whatever.
got back from Brazil, or I just got back from Japan. And they're like, what? You know, it's like, but it was a magical time. In that sport for sure, but a magical time, like they don't come along that often where it's like every single person, whether you loved them or hated them, and there was a lot of us, and a lot of people loved me and hated me. That was just my personality. But the reality is there was a camaraderie that was built upon passion and commitment, and you know, we all got in it for the pure reasons, not for, there was no fame in skateboarding. You didn't get into skateboarding to be famous or to, you know, travel the world. At the time we were skating, you know, there'd be 3 people at the skate park the entire day. You know, it was like almost...
Even having a skate park was pretty amazing.
Well, it was the second generation. The first generation was, you know, the Dogtown era. You hear a lot about that.
And you grew up in San Diego,
Yep,
California,
San Diego.
so there was more of a forward-thinking spirit there about
And,
this
and,
kind of
and
sport.
skateboarding, when I first started, was really, really popular. And you'd go to the park, and I can just remember, it's like one of those, you know, I can remember like what it smelled like and what it felt like and where you know, the vibe. But one of them was called Oasis. It was under the freeway. So you'd be skating in the skate park, and there'd be, you know, trucks and cars going over the overpass right above you. It's just surreal. It seems like almost a dream, right? But then all of a sudden, you know, lawsuits and just, you know, that side of skateboarding took in, and it just went away, you know. And there was a small collection of people that kept skating because that, you know, was their life. That's what they did.
And then there was, you know, the surfing community was sort of, did they intermingle like
Oh
in
yeah,
California?
there was a common connection with the surfing community. Would come and just, you know, carve around the skate park. And then there was obviously, don't get me wrong, there were surfers that, you know, transcended and started skating at that level. But most of the skaters in my generation that were truly talented may surf. Like Chris Miller is one of the most stylish surfers I've ever seen. Tony's a great surfer, you know. So there's
You
a
surf?
when I got up on the board, I was okay, but like getting out there, because I didn't do it all the time, was very frustrating for me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get out there and ride, right?
Right.
But half of surfing is knowing how to get out there, get up on the board. Once you're up on the board, pretty much any sport that I tried that was what I consider
Snowboarding, easy for
snowboarding,
you?
I made it a commitment to myself, because Tony and all my friends had already gone snowboarding, and I wanted to catch up quickly, and I had skied. I grew up in Montana when I was really young, so I was really into skiing.
Oh, new fact for me. I didn't know that.
So I spent a lot of time at, you know, up in Bozeman, Montana.
Oh, you're like Yellowstone. You were
Yeah,
like
no, and then we went from, you
You're
know,
a man's man.
yeah, I went from Montana to Michigan, so I like played like all the like Michigan sports. I was the catcher on the baseball team. I was
Tom Brady?
the point guard on the basketball team. You know, I was the quarterback on the football team. And if I had stayed in that zone, I would have continued to do exactly what, you know, Michiganders do, which is go right into, you know, that as your life, right?
Yeah.
But we kind of left Michigan and went back in 7th grade to California, and I just started skating, and I fell in love with its, like, the unique ability to control your own destiny is something that I had never experienced in sports, and I really fell in love with it. It was like I had no one to blame but myself. So my limits were set by my commitment. And I was committed. I would take 2 buses, like basically an hour and a half from University City to get to Del Mar, and then skate about a mile and a half from the bus stop to get to the skate park. So it was a commitment, you know. And I would go right after school. I would do my homework on the bus if I got it done. I was a good student. I got good grades, which was also set me apart from every other skater, because most of the skaters, by the way, the skaters that I skated with, my contemporaries, are the smartest, most creative people I've ever met, still to this day. They just didn't fit. They didn't fit school. They didn't fit like what school represented. Tony was the exception. You know, his parents, you know, kept him pretty true to that. I don't think he was necessarily, I think he was a very intelligent student, but he had to be distracted because he got good so young that he had, I don't know how he would have kept up, you know, on his grades. I don't know if he did or didn't, but I mean, he was a very, very smart guy.
He probably regrets not getting that master's,
Oh yeah,
master's degree.
it definitely held him back in life. There's no doubt.
And you know, skating, you know, at the time, again, I want to put it in perspective. It was not like the what we know it as today as being more commonplace. It was sort of an outsider's game.
Well,
And
it was an outsider's game, and then it became all of a sudden overnight. It feels like a pop culture phenomenon.
Would you know why? I mean, was there a trigger point or something? Or?
You know, there's this, you know, this punk rock punk rock moment in society. You know, music had gone that direction, and skateboarding became a reflection of kind of rebellion at a time that, you know, and I read I'm a huge Prince fan, which is probably something not a lot of people realize. But,
Amazing.
I was a huge, like, of all the people in skating, I was known to be the Prince fan, and I read a book about, it just so happened that that part, that 80s, like, I graduated high school in 84, so in the 80s was the first time that you were dealing with a lot of kids whose parents had divorced. So they lived in a world where the parents were vying for the attention. You know, if you think about it from the people that you do know in your life that, you know, have divorced children, or they're divorced and they have children, there's always kind of like this vying for who's gonna take care of the kids and where the kid's gonna stay. Well, if you think about that, I mean, if you're a friend of a kid whose parents were divorced, you probably were partying at their house. One or both of the parents, right? Because they would give you a little more latitude. So I think there's a little bit of that, but I also think it was a very creative period. I think that the music was creative. There's a big influence in the 80s of, you know, English music, you know, and a wide interpretation of different forms of music, and then punk, and then you get, you know, Metallica and the Beastie Boys, like
Chili Peppers.
yeah,
and
Chili
like punk
Peppers.
rock.
Like there's
Yeah,
just
right.
a really cool mix of like cultural things going on at the same time, and skateboarding just became a reflection of that.
And street basketball, street ball, right, is I think a similar kind of meditative act for people who are escaping the troubles at home, and then they get out, and you know what, they're thinking nothing else but just landing a move or you know,
100%, 100%.
And so you were not just a skater; you were in the top.
Yeah,
I
I worked my way up. I was
seven. Like what?
Yeah, so seventh.
What's the ranking? How does that work?
Seventh in the world, and it just came down to there's probably about 6 to 7 really big competitions every year. It was pre-X Games, so I never once skated at an X Games. That was like literally a year or two after I was done. I was married very early. I got married at 19, so my wife was very much a part of my skate career. I was kind of known as, you know, they saw us as a couple, you know, that was around.
I did see the Ken Park movie, so I know about your life.
Oh yeah, totally. I killed myself in the first scene. Yeah, but I made it.
For audience, we'll
made it.
You know, maybe making talk about that. But
well, there's a funny story about that really quickly. Is that so? You know, Harmony Korine, who wrote Kids, which was another huge movie and a real kind of like that really captured the attention of, you know, the media industry, because it was about, you know, New York kids growing up with drugs and sex, and it was just very loose, and Larry Clark was the director, and it was a big controversy in that film, right? So the second screenplay that he wrote, and I think I've pieced this together, but I definitely met Harmony at a demo in Brooklyn, you know, and New York. And so we would go to New York quite often, but, you know, back then, once again, a demo could be, you know, 300 kids. It's not a big, you know, it's not like a stadium event, right? You'd go to a shop and there'd be a bunch of kids there. And, you know, it was at a time that you had to make a decision. You know, skateboarding has always been kind of a black hat, white hat kind of sport. Like, you know, so it's like, you know, if you're on the white hat side of it, the reality is that you would, you know,
like wrestling, like good guys, bad guys, like that
kind of that. I was
because of personality or because of intent, like I'm going to
personality,
play this role.
style, like what you would do with the fan base. So like I would be the person that would stay until I signed every signature. It's like, you know, I was kind of humble about it. Like I took it in stride. Like I knew that we were in the middle of something unique and very cool, and I was definitely into it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I was like level-headed about it. You know, you get a little bit of fame, you have to figure out how you're going to deal with it. But there's, you know, there's people that, you know, you would either party hard in front of your fans, or all the different decisions you make on lifestyle. And we all partied and we all had a good time, but, you know, you'd make decisions. But anyway, I think Harmony walked away thinking that I was a representation of the clean side of the sport. I mean, I was a student body president in my high school. I was straight A student in high school. You know, I went to college. I was the only, you know, on my contemporaries, one of the few, if not the only, especially in the top 10, that was going to college at the same time that I was traveling everywhere. So I was kind of weighing those two things, or, you know, measuring those two things against each other. And so I think that when Harmony met me, he probably came up with the conclusion that I was the clean-cut guy. So if you're going to write a movie about a bunch of skaters that like beat the shit out of their parents and have sex with, you know, older women and stuff like that, first person that comes to mind is Ken Park. So I literally
great.
get this letter, I think, in the mail, and it says Harmony Korine wants to name his next movie Ken Park, and he wants you to write away your life basically. And I'm like, yes, I get to totally cash in on this one. This is awesome. I go, I want 10 grand. And he goes, oh, screw you, I'll call it something else. Oh, good point. Okay. It was my first lesson in negotiations.
Wow.
So I go, okay, how about $500 and I get a cameo role in the movie? And he agreed to it. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I get to be in a movie. I've never been in a movie, right? So this is, I've got to be in my early 20s at this point, okay? Maybe even very early 20s, like 2021. Anyway, it goes away. Like, I have left skateboarding at this point. I've gone to New York. I was going to create my new self for a lot of reasons, which we'll get into. But the reality is that, like, I had my first child. Like, I get married to a new woman because I had divorced my first wife, after 7 years.
Gotcha.
And I'm in New York, and I'm just creating a new life. And all of a sudden, Kevin Thatcher, of all people, from Thrasher Magazine, gets in touch with me and says, hey, Harmony Korine, or Larry Clark, I can't remember which one, was looking for you because they're going to make your movie. I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, I got to get in on that, right? So it's a funny story. So I get hooked up with them. They're already in production, and they said, yeah, we want you to fly out. They're going to fly me out to California for my cameo role. And so I walk into the set, which was like somewhere downtown, one of those areas in LA that I can't even tell you where they are because they're so disparate. Anyway, and I walk up, and there's bouncers on the edge, and I go, hi, I'm Ken Park. And they go, huh, yeah, you're a smartass. I go, no, I'm Ken Park. And they're like, get the fuck out of here.
Really? And
They wouldn't let me in it. And so I had to show them
my library card.
I had to show them my library card. So somehow I get in. I don't even remember. The production assistant comes in and takes me over. And the scene that I'm going to shoot is I'm the doctor that's delivering Ken Park into the world. So they shoot this elaborate scene for like 2.5 hours. And I had already, I was a seasoned actor because I had already done the laser tag commercial at this point.
Right, yeah. We got to make sure we get a copy when we go to break. We'll promote that.
Yeah.
Is that laser tag facility still in operation?
No, that was actually at Marineland down in Palos Verdes.
Come on, man, let's go.
Laser tag. It's hotter than ever from Worlds of Wonder.
So they actually built the whole thing just for the shoot because they were tearing down the whole place.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was a fun experience too.
So what did you get out of it? Did you get some sort of...
Of the Ken Park movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing that I was really looking forward to is, what could be cooler than having a poster on your wall of a movie that was named after you, right? So I get the poster, and it's basically a shot of a young kid going down on an old woman. And it says Ken Park.
Oh,
and I'm like, this is going to be a tough sell at the Park House.
Yeah?
This is going to be a tough one.
You don't have that in the lobby of Oktane Media?
No. I had it. I had the second version, which was a little less, direct.
Now, with your artistic skills and that of your operation, Oktane Media, maybe you design a whole new movie poster. It still has the same flair.
I think I could do that. I could do that, But then, it is amazing. We laugh about it, but the reality is I have been approached by, several people that said, oh, yeah, I saw the Ken Park movie.
Was it in theaters?
No, they never got U.S. distribution. It was too racy. Which is really crazy, I got to tell you.
Like a rated X kind of
Yeah,
version.
because I went on set, right? And so I shot my scene and everything, but I was there for a day and a half, and I got to hang out with the actors and the leads and everything.
Yeah.
But all of them were teenagers, so all of their parents had to be there. So I'm thinking to myself, how weird is it that your kid gets a role on what is going to be basically such an X-rated movie that it doesn't get U.S. distribution, but you're sitting there on set watching your child act out scenes of going down on an older woman. I don't know. The whole thing is surreal to me.
Surreal.
It's surreal.
And you think that, even to this day, you wonder how child actors are able to turn out anywhere normal, and maybe that.
Do they?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
Some do,
I don't know many that do.
Right? But it's just an odd thing to have the parents standing by and approving that kind of thing.
I think it really, that was the thing that shocked me. Is I'd been, skating is not the cleanest cut sport in the world. We've all done our things, right? Crazy things that, you can't believe that you had lived through, right?
And you were in an eclectic crowd of people who were run the gamut of all social.
Oh yeah. Well,
status,
Gator,
and-
who, Gator was not the person I traveled the most with because we were on the same team, Vision, and he was the top skater at Vision, right?
Yeah.
And we ended up becoming really good friends. He was kind of like a closet intellectual when we got together, and here I was going to college, so we kind of were like very much a yin and yang. Like no one would have guessed it, right? And the nights that we would be, at competitions or out on tour, I could tell when he was going to go out and just fucking get crazy, and I would chill out because I knew that I would need to play the role.
Did you have that sensibility at that point, or do you
Yeah.
reflect back and go like, thank goodness I had that sensibility?
I
Were
definitely
you fearful of like I look back and I go, I can't believe I did some of the things.
No,
I did.
I was never fearful of my own actions. So I went out and got ridiculously drunk and did stupid things that people do on a normal level, right?
Yeah. Like in Vegas when we went to the SEMA show.
Exactly,
We had
exactly.
fun.
But when Gator was getting ready to go out, I could see that it was beyond like I'm just going to go out and get fucked up or
A
something
lot
like
of
that.
drugs at that point.
A lot
Still,
of drugs,
heroin on the scene, or-
no. There were some of the first times I had ever seen crack cocaine were at competitions in St. Louis. That we were getting rained out, and there was a bunch of skaters yet to be named under the ramps, smoking crack, which like it didn't faze me. It was just like I remember noting it, like, oh yeah, that's weird. I've never done that. Like I grew up in a pretty liberal household, so I was around drugs, but I mean simple drugs, like pot, a lot of drinking. I did
Maybe aspirin.
Yeah, like just things that you would not necessarily be concerned about. So, but there's things that stood out. There's definitely it was a cultural moment, and I've never been anything but proud to be a part of it. I'm humbled by it. I'm humbled that, I'm considered even in the vicinity of the kind of people like Tony and Chris Miller and Christian, like even that I could skate and even be in running with them in the finals. That was an accomplishment I felt really good about.
Tony's a mogul now. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly. And, I'm always impressed, and I know I'm guilty of bringing it up all the time because I'm a fan, right? And, not that I was a skater or whatever, but like as anybody who did something in their youth, and I played basketball, and it's very hard for me to go out and not dive into the wall for a loose ball or
Oh,
something.
totally,
like that.
totally.
So have you ever tried to get back on the, on the board and like...
Oh yeah, I ride once in a while, and it's very frustrating for me because my mind still thinks like I have the talent. The funniest story I tell is that I definitely took a pretty long hiatus because I was being a dad, and I was also starting Oktane as a business, and I didn't have a lot of time. I worked my tail off. So when I finally get home, I wanted to spend time with the family, so it wasn't like I was going to, it's the same reason I love golf, but I never got into golf because, you're going to come home and then you're going to take a whole day to go play
like a
golf.
6 hour, right?
Yeah, I couldn't do
hobby,
it.
yeah.
I couldn't do it. So, there was a lot of that, but I would skate, and my kids, there was a couple stories that they got into skating, but they weren't really into it, and I think it was kind of weird to see their dad, like at that time I was still fairly good at it, like just good enough that people couldn't figure anything out, like when they got older though, and we actually moved to Florida, we went skating one time, and I was skating, and as long as I was on my board, I felt relatively good, like my mind was good, right? But what you forget about is that you're older. Like considerably older. I was in my 40s, right? I'm in my 50s now, late 50s. So the reality is I'm in my 40s, late 40s. So things like bailing and running out of a trick, you forget you don't know how to run anymore. So it wasn't the skateboarding anymore. It was like stepping off the board and trying to run out of it and realizing I haven't run fast, I don't know, in 10 years. So it's like,
even a simple fall when you're 20 is, oh, that hurt. But when you're 40, it's, I got to take the week off.
I got to tell you, this is about 5, maybe 6 years ago. I went skating with my older son, Harrison, and we went to a local skate park, a little tiny one in Gulfport down in Florida where we live. And I was not taking it serious. I was just kind of doing I was not paying attention. I was just kind of on my board. And I went up this little quick transition, and I fell on my tailbone, and I thought I wanted to just give the whole, I never wanted to be on a board again. It hurt that bad. I was like, you forget, and I took really strong. Like I was actually I think I was kind of known for taking really hard falls. I don't know why. I guess big guy, but you know, and I was also known for throwing my board and acting like a complete maniac when I fell. I get pissed and throw my board, which motivated me to go up and try it again.
Yeah.
But you know, I definitely didn't sit well with a lot of people. I got to be honest with you.
You said one time we were out at dinner and you were bringing up a story, and it was amazing, about a reunited, or, you know, a reunion kind of tour where you were asked to come out of retirement.
Well, what happened is I was in the media industry. In fact, I had worked at AOL. Actually, I worked at Prodigy with people that left Prodigy and go to AOL. So I was really good friends with people in the interactive industry, right? One guy, great guy, Andy Zipfel. And Andy went from, you know, Prodigy to AOL, and then I think he went to ESPN, all right? And so Tony's Boom Boom Huck Band, Boom Boom Huck Jam. Thank you. Boom Boom Huck Jam tour came to town, and he was in Jersey, and Andy goes, "Hey, would you like to go to the tour?" I go, "Hell yeah, that'd be fun, right?"
Right.
So we go down and we watch the thing, and I've been around skating my whole life.
What year was this?
So this had to be, God, 10 years ago, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, it's
relatively.
Yeah,
you
10
know,
years
recent.
ago.
Okay, yeah.
12 years ago at the most. And my family had never seen me skate. My wife had never seen me skate, Jeanette, and my kids had never seen me skate. I mean, they'd see me skate, but not like in a stadium or anything like that, right? So anyway, but this is the first day. It was down in Jersey, and Andy Zipfel invites me. We go and we watch it. And it was what blew me away is I had seen BMX and I'd seen skateboarding. I'd been around it my whole life, so that was impressive. Although they were doing things that I had never, like the big launch ramp thing that they do now, unbelievable. But what really blew me away is the motorcycle guys. I mean, those guys are crazy. Like, you know, you're taking a huge machine and you're throwing it around. And,
Well, we saw the
just
what was
blew
that
my
in
mind.
Vegas. We saw that.
Yeah.
What was that?
Same thing.
I mean, it was like
same
a
thing.
circus.
You know where they like
Nitro Circus.
Yeah,
isn't
Nitro
it?
Circus.
Yeah, right.
And so
Wow.
it's Nitro Circus. It was like, but that was the first time I'd ever seen it up close and personal, and it blew my mind. Anyway, so the event's done, and Andy's like feeling pretty cool because he's got backstage passes, and we're like, all right, cool, let's go backstage, right? So we walk down backstage, and the first person I see is Tony's mom, Nancy. May she rest in peace. Incredible woman, right? Incredible. But she
Was Hawk their real last name, by the way?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so Nancy Hawk was there, and is one of the first people I see when I walk back there, and she immediately goes, "Ken Park," and gives me this big hug. At this point, Andy Zipfel is just like, he had known that I was a skater, but didn't know Tony Hawk's mom was
Right.
going to give me a hug.
Yeah, right.
You know? So then we go over and we walk up, and you know all the athletes are lined up, and I was just so humbled because there were so many guys there that you know were just people that were my peers or a generation behind me, and they were just being so gracious. Like I felt really moved by it. Like, you know, it was special moment.
And then did you skate? Like, did you get out there? And
Oh
do
no!
anything?
So then Tony, you know, I pulled Tony aside and we, you know, give each other a hug. And you know, I'd seen Tony a few times, like in New York. He was walking the street one night, and we just happened to bump into each other. We spent the night just hanging out and drinking and going to a couple restaurants and stuff. Anyway, so you know, he goes, "Hey, listen, we're going to be in Long Island in 3 days. I'd really like you to be the guest skater." Well, I hadn't skated in 2.5 years. So I do the obviously smart thing, which is, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Tony Hawk asked you
So
to skate.
yeah, so
You
I go
skate.
home, and I think I literally went, and we had a little tiny skate park with a little tiny vert ramp, but I think I went home and I skated probably about 36 hours for the next, you know, it was like a 72-hour span. 36 of it is me trying to figure out how to skateboard again. So I show up.
And it doesn't come back like riding a bike?
It does a little
Okay.
bit. So, but I then go to, so this is a little tiny vert ramp at the local skate park, right? So I go to Nassau Coliseum, and, you know, there's a warm-up day. So the event is, let's say it's a Saturday night at 7, right? So at about 12 in the afternoon, I show up and I get a pass and I go back and I've got my equipment and I look at this ramp and it was like a dream ramp, an absolute dream ramp. Like, you know, like ones that we used to dream about when we were skating. It was perfect. It was huge, perfect, smooth. So I started trying to skate this thing. And I mean, Chuck, this thing was just, I was struggling.
High? Was it like
It was high, it was fast, it was big, it was intimidating. I'm just trying to get up to the top just to do
so
simple
you drop
things.
into it, it feels like you're falling, right?
Oh, it's huge. Like,
and then you've got to...
it was bigger than any ramp I had ever skated when I was a pro, so that's how intimidating it was.
Okay.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony Hawk, he's going
Right.
to make a perfect ramp, right? So anyway, I'm feeling really scared. I think was the best word. Like, I'm in over my head. I've got to just, and I'm not the kind of person that is just going to give in easily, but I'm in over my head. Maybe I should just accept the fact that I'm not skating anymore and just watch this event with my family. So I go backstage, to the locker room area, and Tony's son's there, Riley, who I knew when he was tiny, and now he's like, one of the legit skaters in the scene and just doesn't know me from Adam, even though Tony's very gracious and introduces me, and he's like, yeah, whatever. Riley. So that was it. And then Bucky, who I did know, Bucky Lysik was there, and I go, Tony, listen, I want to thank you so much for letting me skate, asking me to skate, but I don't think I can do this, man. The ramp is intimidating. I just don't think I put on a very good show, and I think maybe I'm just gonna accept my fate and just go watch this with my family. And Tony, being the person he is, like, no problem, man. Don't worry about it.
You go, you pussy.
No, he was He was like, hey, whatever you feel like. That's Tony. Tony is just. He's one of the most gracious people I've ever met. Like, he's just a phenomenal
I
human.
get the graciousness, but there's also that bro code of like...
There's a bro
like,
code.
Come on.
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
I'm going to get to that. Because
right.
then there's also another bro code, which is maybe you don't do that to a guy that, we had spent so much time together. Because then I turned to Bucky, who I knew really well, and I say, Bucky, what do you think? He goes, I think you're a fucking idiot. Which is all I needed to say, I'll be there tonight, right? Yeah. So I get out there, and it's like, it's kind of an intermission section of the presentation, and Social Distortion is playing, and so it's just a free skate session, right?
Okay,
so it's like almost like there's no announcement, it's not structured. So I go out there and I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And I drop in and I do a few little tricks, and Tony laughs because I did this trick called the Madonna. He goes, first trick you're gonna do on my big ramp in front of everyone is a Madonna. That's not what I would have chosen. So we're laughing, but he's coming over now to me. And as I'm starting to do more and more things on the ramp, little airs, little things. I was known for doing inverts, which is like you put your hand on the top and you're like doing almost like a handstand, And so I do a basic one. He goes, that was awesome, do this. And so now Tony Hawk's asking me to do specific tricks that I was known to do. You don't say no to Tony, so you just start doing them, right?
Yeah.
But I was in the zone. Like, the adrenaline, the crowd, everything. It totally took me back to where I thought I needed to be to perform. And I just kept doing more and more difficult tricks, and ones that, he kept doing. Double neon, where I'd take the board off and hit my knees and blah, blah. Anyway, so at one point he asked me to do a trick that I was known for that was one of the more difficult tricks, which is like it's a finger flip invert. So you like go up, and then you flip the board, and spins, and you catch it, and you put your feet back on, and you go back in.
Oh my God, it seems physically impossible.
And it was just like, I nailed it. I was like, I'm landing. This is awesome.
In the practice round?
No, this is in the middle of the whole thing. No, I did.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Park.
I sucked at the practice round. This is now in the middle of the event. My family's up there watching. I'm doing things.
You are feeling there's a rush there.
And I'm making it, and I put my feet on the board, but as I'm going down the ramp, I kind of go back this way, and I fall back, and I hit my head on the bottom of the ramp, and I knock myself out in front of 25,000 people.
And you're sliding down.
I'm just at the bottom of the ramp. I'm knocked out unconscious. Okay, so now you got to remember, my wife, my kids are up there. Never seen me skate.
You didn't have a helmet on?
I had a helmet.
And you still?
Oh, I knocked out. So now everyone is like, this guy die? Like you got, so Barry Zaritsky is like basically the trainer that used to be with us. He comes out, he goes, are you all right? He's like trying to bring me back, and I'm
Did
like,
Tony give you
and I'm like,
mouth? Did he give you mouth to mouth?
No, I'm pretty lucky that they didn't just sit there and just urinate on me, because that's how bad it was,
Would that be the thing? Okay, so when you're a kid and somebody gets knocked out, they write dick on your forehead or something.
Oh, there would have been someone doing something.
Yeah, but you're all adults.
No, we're adults.
Your family.
So anyway, the paramedics come out. They put me on a stretcher. They wheel me off.
Oh, man.
They take me back to the locker room area, right? They continue to do the event.
Is that why one of your eyes goes this way?
Yeah, pretty much. That's why forget. So the reality is they put a neck brace on me. I'm laying on the thing.
Oh, man.
And they're like, we're going to take you to the hospital. I go, fuck, no. That's at this point, by the way, I'm just like, where am I? Like, I'm knocked out, right? So anyway, they put a neck brace on me. And I'm like, they're going to take you to the hospital. I go, no, and I just jump up. I've fallen harder than that. And I start running around looking for Tony because all I could think about is I need to get Tony to sign my kids a skateboard before I left, right? So I'm running around the halls, and the first person I run into is,
See, you're already forgetting.
I am. Who's the Billy Joel's ex-husband, ex-wife?
Christy Brinkley?
Christy Brinkley's there with her son in the hallway. And, I'm sorry. I blew the story. The reality is the first person I see is Susan Sarandon with her son, and she's in the hallway. And I go, Susan Sarandon, oh, I'm a huge fan. I start just talking too much, like I'm knocked out, right? She goes, oh, are you okay? I see, we saw it out there. It was dangerous. You okay? I'm
Tim
good.
Robbins,
I'm fine.
was
I'm
you married
fine.
to him at the time,
Yeah, he
or
wasn't
no?
there, though.
Oh,
he wasn't there.
Okay.
So I go, oh, I'm sorry. And I just totally cut Susan Sarandon off. I got to go find Tony. I must have just been loopy, right? So I'm running down the halls. The next person I run into is Pat Hawk, Tony's manager, sister.
Yeah.
Goes, Ken, I forgot to have you sign this. Could you sign this? I had just almost died on the ramp. She wants me to sign a release. And I, being the very smart businessman I am, said, oh, of course. Yeah, I just signed it. So I basically signed away any rights that I could have sued Tony, like I would have sued Tony anyway, but, would have been a nice option. Anyway, so
Or settle with him out of court.
Yeah, settle out of court. It would have been fine. We could have done it over a beer or two. That would have been fun. So anyway, I run down the hall and, Tony's over there, and I turn the corner and I bust in the room, and Christy Brinkley and her son is hanging out, and Tony's signing a skateboard for Christy Brinkley. But I just spent 15 minutes talking to Susan Sarandon, but Christy Brinkley, no. Excuse me. And I said, Tony, will you sign this? And then I just left.
So the crowd only saw you just be taken out.
Well, so the funny thing is, before all that happened, Barry.
Did you give like one of these to the crowd?
Well, Barry said, we have to go out and let them know that you're still alive.
It's like Owen Hart in wrestling.
Yeah.
Remember, he fell off.
So we go out, we walk up the back of the ramp, we get up to the top of the ramp, and I just go, and everybody goes,
electric.
And I was going, good, I'm the guy that gets knocked out, but he's still alive, so it looks like I made it.
You're a hero. That's great.
So I was quite
Was that the last time you rolled on a skateboard?
No, I've skated quite a bit. Yeah,
okay.
That's the last time I rolled in front of that many people.
Yeah.
But it was funny. So my kids played baseball, in Rockville Center in Long Island, and every once in a while, whether it was a local kid or one of the kids we're playing against, realized that I was the guy that got knocked out at Nassau Coliseum.
Well, hey, you know what? That's a great story.
Yeah, well, it's good to be. It's good to be famous by any means necessary.
So then you go, you leave skating, right? And that was a decision. What kind of thought went into that?
It was a midlife crisis. I was 26. I had been married at 19 and got a divorce at 26. And
was it a decision like, I'm going to stop this, or was it just like, I'm going to try something new, and then I always have skating?
It was truly like a midlife crisis where I said to myself, if I want to stay in skating for the rest of my life, I could, and I would enjoy it. I loved it. I loved the sport. I loved everyone in it. I wasn't leaving skating because I didn't like skating. I just wanted to challenge myself. And I had just gone through this divorce, and it was kind of making me rethink who I was and who I wanted to be. And I said, you know what? I got to try to challenge myself again. It was like a new challenge. And so I just moved back to New York. And I got in the music industry at a time that digital was taking place, and so I was always very kind of technical and computer savvy through the skate companies that I created and everything. So I went back there, and I'm like, I really want to be a part of the music industry. My parents were really into music when I was younger, so I felt like it was kind of an industry that was similar to skateboarding but different and a new frontier. So I went back and I got a job at a really hot, what Billboard was for the main charts. There was a company called CMJ that was like for the college radio at the time, which was the launching pad for all the hot artists that we now respect.
Right.
Came up through the college music scene, right? And so the college DJs would play them, and just like Billboard, CMJ would rank all of the college playlists to see who was getting the most play. Yeah. And so they were really coveted by the labels. So the labels would spend a lot of money and a lot of attention trying to get their charts onto CMJ. So it was a cool place to be, right? Met my current wife, Jeanette, of 30 years. And ends up becoming the wife of my kids. And anyway, so it was a great experience. And then I go into that, and then I kind of go to the next level, which is I take that and I turn it into, at the time, there was, the internet was exploding, so I went and worked for Prodigy at a time, which most people won't know the name, but everyone's heard of AOL. At the time that AOL was, getting big, Prodigy was right there, and they're kind of just going side by side. And I worked at Prodigy. And then a tech entrepreneur came in, a guy by the name of Ken Magis, and he had a technology that, basically locked down video on a disc, so you could only see it if you're online, which was pretty cool. Right, yep. And so it just got me into this whole mindset of what is video going to be like in this new digital age. And because I was at Prodigy and because I was at these companies where we were talking to very big brands and kind of giving them our opinion as to what video would be, this started to become my kind of like my new passion is like, what is video going to be in the new world? And I left Prodigy and I got a job in technology, but specifically marketing technology with this video, and I would be talking to direct marketing companies and big brands and sports teams and movie houses and labels about using this. And it was kind of like the first ability that a label had. So like if you're a band and you had a CD, they started to put interactive things on the CD, but that didn't do anything except just add new content to the CD. What we would do is say, okay, we're going to put a video on this CD, but you can only unlock it at the band site. So for the first time ever, bands or their managers were having direct relationships with, the people that were buying these CDs. And that's a really mind-blowing experience when you start to become close and have a connection with your audience. And so all of those mechanics that I just talked about started to become everything that I would think about all day long. It was like, what is video going to do? And how, if you use video to create an incentive to come and have a direct relationship, what would that be like? And so that's formed my whole idea of Oktane, which is an agency. But Oktane was going to be a video studio. That's what it was going to be, a video studio for making videos for the internet. But it was just so early, nascent technology, that nobody really understood that. So Oktane became an interactive agency out of necessity. I had to make money to pay to have the studio, but I had these brilliant people working for me, really talented creatives, filmmakers, just great times, right? And they all kind of saw my passion for what I thought video was going to be, and they loved being a part of that, and they were just great at their craft, and I just had a really, a great, several years just being a startup, trying to create video strategies for people, and that's kind of where I got started in the whole industry.
And then the greatest professional encounter of your life came from the Nantucket Comedy Festival.
Nantucket Comedy Festival.
It's just weird how life is so incredibly random, and I'll give, from my
Well, I think what's
perspective,
random,
but like
I think
serendipity.
it's, listen, you have meetings in your life, in any business, right? You have meetings where you go, I killed it, I rocked that one, that was great. You get a good client, or you get something. But every once in a while you meet someone that just rocks your world as far as they're on the same wavelength of thinking about the same things that you're thinking. And that's when you and I got on the phone. It was like, everyone else was there. It was like, just, okay, let's just put them aside. They must have been so bored, because I think we went 45, 50 minutes straight, just back and forth, talking about strategies about video content,
and so,
and
I
building
reached out,
channels.
a good friend, Jackie Flynn, comedian, Marshfield guy, Boston guy, and
super talented. I was
super
just with them
hilarious.
a couple weeks
Louder
ago.
Milk,
Brilliant.
Fairly Brothers movies,
Brilliant.
very talented, very funny. Like a lot of the older comedians, maybe felt a little lost in this new technological world where digital was social media channels, and they just wanted to be funny, right?
Yeah.
So I see a post about him and Kevin Flynn, brothers from a different mother.
Well, and so
Jackie
that's
Flynn.
that's going to within a few years ago. So let me go 15 years back, and I hire Kevin Flynn to be an actor on a I'm putting together a series, kind of like a Seinfeld-esque comedy series, but it was going to be a branded entertainment piece for a car dealership in Pennsylvania. And so I hire Kevin. It's just random, just talent search, right?
Right. I didn't know this.
Yeah, so I hired Kevin to be an actor. I'm forgetting the woman's name. He always brings it up, but she was also a comedian, a comic. God, it'll come to me. And then two actors, right? So it was 4 people that I hired. Well, Kevin and this other comic, they were just hilarious all day. And it was a long, grueling day. You know what it's like when you're shooting like a 12-hour day and you're doing take after take and let's do that again, blah, blah, blah. And the lights are hot at that point because you didn't have LCD. So it was just, everyone's melting throughout the day. And, it's just you can just feel the energy leaving. But Kevin was not. Kevin was like the comedian comic that he is. He just kept everyone laughing, and we were just hysterical, which actually made the day longer, but it made it also work. And we just got along really well. And so then we started.
Was it a scripted show, or was it like
it was a scripted show? This one
mockumentary, like The Office,
like
a paper company in Pennsylvania.
And I enjoyed working with him enough that I then had another project, a few months later with an insurance company, and I got him to do the acting bit for that. And he's an ex-pro soccer player, very talented, and he was doing this thing where he's like, dribbling the ball in his head, and talking about life stage insurance, right? And then lastly, we started doing something for the same company, but in a different, for travel insurance, okay, for car travel insurance, and we created a show. He and I created a show called Travel Bites, and the idea was we would go to a family destination, the type of destination you would drive to, so like Orlando or, wherever Vegas or whatever it may be, and we would do one episode with 3 places to eat. And then the next episode would be 3 places to stay, 3 places to play, and then 3 places to shop, okay? And we'd have 4 episodes that would then, after we produced them, they would run, every other week, type of thing. So we would shoot these shows, and then we'd have 2 months of content. Then we'd shoot another show. And
where was this distributed? Like on
all on the internet.
So,
and the whole idea was it was going to be different than a direct mail campaign in the sense that it was going to be content that said, hey, you're going to get in your car and drive, you should have insurance. But instead of saying that and asking someone to buy it, which nobody would buy,
right.
We said, hey, let's first entertain you. And it's brought to you by, the insurance company. And now that we have you entertained, would you consider it? It was a different approach entirely, right?
And this is, and this is where you and
It's the new world, right? Yeah. And Kevin was there the whole time. And he was brilliant because that was semi-scripted. We would have, here, make sure on this location, talk about these 3 points, and he would just nail it. And he'd be funny, and he'd just be, it's fantastic content. He's just a great host, right? And we just really became good friends. Okay, this is now 15 years ago, so nobody was doing this. This was very innovative. So I said, Kevin, we went out to eat one night with a bunch of his comic friends, and I just watched them riff on each other all night. And I said, this is brilliant. And I said, I got to create a show around that. So I got together with Kevin, and we created Modern Man. And it was a series based upon a Monday night, which is the only off night, that. It's the only night you don't do shows, and we would pay them like way more. I never realized that comics get no money in New York. Like next to no, if not no, like $25 or something, right. $50 or something, right?
And they're promised money and they never get it even.
So we would invite his friends, all these comics, top comics, right? And we would pay them $250 each. Okay. Wow, yeah, we would get a spread of food. We'd have beer. We'd have pot. We'd have whatever they wanted, right? And we would shoot a night. And we would walk away with probably 8 to 10 episodes of a show called Modern Man. And the premise was 4 comedians all sitting around a poker table, and we would throw a topic out there. And they would just riff on it. And we would shoot it. And the production team was brilliant, great guys. But we were all cracking up, like laughing so loud, like way worse than today, where it's like, you like don't want to become part of the scene, right? But you're just laughing. It's the funniest shit you ever heard.
Well, hanging out with comedians in the green room is better than seeing them on stage.
And that's what it was like.
And how they interact with
one
another.
And that's what it was
They're
like.
assassins at each other.
And it's just brutal. And somebody would tell a story and someone would just beat up on that story, but then they'd fight back. It was just a great show. Yeah. And it was just way ahead of its time. Just way ahead of its time.
The episodes I remember seeing, even I wouldn't call it shocking, but it was like, wow.
Oh yeah.
It was refreshing because it was in this sanitized world we live in now. To see it now.
There's guys that would not want me to put this stuff out right now. I've thought about putting it out because it's just brilliant, but it's racy shit. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of sex, a lot of their stories from their escapades in college and being young comedians. And
so fast forward, you see something like we were struck by the famine in Ethiopia, and then Live Aid happens, and then we discovered that there was a lot of kids on Nantucket that just didn't know how to do stand-up comedy. So the Stand Up and Learn program, which touched our hearts, really was the brainchild of
Well,
Kevin.
now you're going to feel really bad, right?
No, I
Because
don't
there
want
was a really, really significant problem with suicide. A lot of these rich kids in Nantucket, desperately seeking social acceptance and, just going through the things we all went through.
You
Yeah.
didn't have to go there with
Yeah,
me.
I know,
feel
I
bad
know.
now. I feel
No,
bad.
but it's like, the reason I say that is because that is Kevin. Kevin is like,
Sure. Yeah,
he
I know.
is this guy that's funny, biting. He can be an ass if he wants to. But, he came up with this idea that, through comedy, kids can learn how to express themselves and write, and all the things as a comedian, are required.
Of course, and I think it goes, a lot of people don't realize what kind of life skill that is from a confidence standpoint, and you have kids who do feel like they don't know how to communicate and be left out, and that it is a phenomenal thing. It's just
And
funny,
he had already been inviting comics out to Nantucket for a while. So anyway, he decides to make the Nantucket Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
And it just becomes this really cool event that was all for the benefit of Stand Up and Learn. And Stand Up and Learn was this program. And it's the perfect example of, like, for me, everything I want to do, it just wasn't a lot of money in it, because they didn't have big sponsors, they didn't have big money. Nantucket, you would think that there's just tons of money, which there was, and everyone's very generous on putting together the event. But it was just a cool event to be a part of, and I was there at the formative
and
stages.
big names. You get Jim Gaffigan, Brian Regan, the Farrelly brothers were involved. Of course, Jackie Flynn and Kevin
Tom
Flynn
Cotter and
Cotter.
his
Don
wife,
Gavin was there. The whole
exactly.
lineup. Yeah, phenomenal. So
Carrie Louise was like his wife, so there was, Bernie and Al Descharme. Like, there's just this, it was just an incredible energy. It was a really cool product.
So I was out there this year. I was out there a bunch of years ago, which was my first introduction. But I think this year, past year, it would have been fun to be out there with you. We would have had a good time.
And I haven't been able, because, especially after the pandemic, the reality was that getting places to stay was difficult.
Yeah.
So, like, they get donated places to stay. They're not paying for places.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a house out there that I stayed, which was nice. But I felt a little bit like I was a guest at somebody's house. So I was like, it was a little bit uncomfortable.
No, it's an incredible event, and that really hats off to Kevin and his team. They do a great job.
They really do. No,
and the locals really, there's some really, really generous people that get behind it and put their money behind it. And it's just one of those things you get to do every once in a while that you feel tremendous about.
So
it brought us together.
Yeah, and of course, and it was I can remember a lot of conversations of where I was. And when our first real conversation, I'm talking to Jack. He's like, "You got to talk to our media guy." So I'm like, "Okay, here we go." Like another guy who just doesn't get it. And then you and I click. And then we had a conversation. And I was on the Cape. I pulled over on the side of the road. I know where I was. I knew it was like a landscaping store in the parking lot, in a dirt parking lot. And we're talking, and it may have been a 2-hour conversation.
Easy.
Of just, my God, he gets it.
Rapid
and I
fire.
get it. And
Rapid
it was just
fire.
back and forth,
Rapid
like
fire.
where media is going. And so
And
I'm
where it
trying
should
to-
go. And where it should go, too.
Where it should go. And I'm trying to get this going, and you're getting Oktane Media, and you saw what I was trying to do, and it was a relief for me, because anytime you speak, it's like going to France and finally finding somebody who speaks English.
100%.
And that was a relief. And so we said, hey, you know what? You said, I like what you're doing. I like what you're doing. We fulfilled needs in each other's business model. And then it was
Let's
the
do it
Plymouth Rock
together.
TV
Yeah.
turning into Oktane Media,
Yep.
Northeast, the Boston, New England
And
version.
and trying to figure out this model, which still, if you really think about it, and for the people that are watching this without even getting into our heads and knowing where we want to take it, if you really look at video online, it still hasn't figured itself out. The reality is video online looks a lot like television. It looks a lot like, it's subscription-based, but it's the same thing that you've seen over and over again, because everybody's obsessing about these huge, big audiences. And we recognize that lifestyle audiences don't have to be big. They can be big, don't get me wrong, but they have to do with passion. They have to do with, what do I want to watch? What makes me feel good, you know? And it's like, you can go to a channel where you can find everything. It's a smorgasbord of everything you want. Or you could go and you could kind of focus on the creation of something. You do an incredible series that's focused on this love and appreciation and you know, because of the humor, you know, you rip it apart, but it's like, it's all this pride about being from New England. And that's amazing, because that is a very New England thing. It's not everywhere feels that way. I mean, I grew up in most of my life in California, and the reality is there, you know, I lived in Encinitas at one point. I owned a house with my first wife, and I don't even know my neighbors. You come back to the East Coast, completely different.
Yeah. I mean, we had last week Alex Sulkin on. He was a head writer for Family Guy and Ted 2. And he's a Boston guy at heart, grew up on the mad hellish
It's
streets
funny,
of
they all go to
Western.
LA. What the hell's up with it?
So he's in
they
LA.
all try to
And I remember when I was out there, and this was like when the Patriots were in the Super Bowl against the Bears with Drew Bledsoe. Oh, no, who were they playing against with Drew Bledsoe? The Rams, the first
Right.
time. And they got their, am I thinking the right? Yeah, going back, like Bledsoe, Parcells. Was it the Rams that they lost?
I wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
Because I'm a
So-
Chargers fan. I was sulking already.
So the Patriots were so bad at that point, and I remember there was a bar called San Francisco's that was all Patriots fans, ironically.
Oh, wow.
And the games would be starting at 10 a.m.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I would play basketball at the YMCA with all actors, and I'm like, I think I know you from somewhere. Jason Gedrick from Iron Eagle, remember him? And like Kid and Play. Kid
Wow.
and Play, you know, playing. And I'm like,
With
and
the
some
tall
people
hair?
were like, I think, did I see you in a hemorrhoid commercial or something? Like, you would just, everybody looked familiar.
Everyone looked familiar.
So, but then you would go, and the only place to see the Patriots out there was if you, at a place that had a satellite TV.
All right.
So I would go up to this bar, and it wasn't open.
Wait. More importantly, did you hold your own on the court?
I think I did.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
did all right.
That's more important.
So I'm looking in the window. So the bartender was a Patriots fan, and the bar wasn't open. So I would be peering in the window like this at 10, and I could just hear the voices of people driving by like, look at that alcoholic. He's just so desperate to get in there and have a drink. But meanwhile, I'm watching the
I
first
can
quarter.
see it. I can see the alcohol.
And but that was, you didn't have the Patriots weren't on in away cities, but nevertheless, the Boston connection out there, and you know, there wasn't a sense of community. There was nobody from there.
No.
Everybody was from Chicago.
Everybody,
and
transitory.
you were-
Transitory.
Right. Oh, that's the.
And
key.
that's why
That's
I used to talk shit, and people thought I was crazy. I used to talk shit about San Diego. I grew up
Yeah.
in San Diego most of my life, and I love San Diego. I went to San Diego State, right? But the reality is, when I grew up in San Diego, it was a place that you visit. It's not a place that you live. Now it has figured out its culture. It has its culture. It has legitimacy.
because of Doug
right?
Flutie. You're welcome.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
he was the guy that went
might have
down
been
there.
it. I thought it was the Marines.
And what's the other kid's name from Wareham? He was a linebacker from.
Junior Seau?
Nope. Ended up being a Patriots guy too. But what's the guy's name? Linebacker after. Oh my God! Why am I escaping the name? We'll put it right here. It'll be in the lower third.
Exactly.
I'll put
and believe me,
yeah.
the only sports town that could fully appreciate Boston, even though you had a lot of crappy teams, we only had a couple really crappy teams, right? So the reality is the
right.
Padres were pretty crappy for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And the Chargers were crappy for a long. Now they had moments of brilliance, but then they'd always crap
This
out.
is like 250+ people trying to remember names on a podcast. Like, that's funny because
Don
I'm
Coryell.
gonna have to.
Don Coryell's the Air Coryell years in the Chargers was a great time to be a fan.
He got pinched for steroids, I think.
Coryell?
No. The guy on the Chargers there.
I was going to say, is that why he had a
Defensive
lisp? I hate those guys. He would talk about the Raiders. He would talk about.
You know, and the greatest athlete that comes out of San Diego was the San Diego Chicken. You know that's something.
There was a World Series in San Diego, though.
Oh,
That was,
Steve
that was
Garvey,
good. That was
remember the
huge.
Padres?
That was huge.
Anyway, so
Tony Gwynn was about as good as you can get.
He was nasty.
I'm just throwing down names so it doesn't look like I can't remember any names.
Their NBA franchise.
Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk is from San Diego.
Okay, yeah, I get it. And they used to put ranch dressing on pizzas out there.
No.
Yes. They used
Where?
There's a pizza place right on the water, and I lost my
You know
wedding ring
what?
in San Diego.
You can talk shit
You can
about a
put
lot
this-
of things about San Diego,
Yeah,
but
that was a thing.
If you've never had Roberto's, which is a little truck on the side of the road,
Okay.
best Mexican food you're ever going to eat, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning after you've been
Sure.
drinking. Maybe we did put, some ranch dressing on pizza, but it was purely experimentation.
Look, I have no judgment.
Experimentation.
People loved it. So anyway, Oktane Media, fast forward, the importance of storytelling.
That's it.
Because I think right now there's a transition of like, how do I get the message? Because we were talking, again, back to Alex Sulkin about Gen
Beta?
And
I
was
had
like, is he
never
talking
heard
about
it.
an old
I've-
girlfriend,
oh
Gen
my God.
Beta? Did he go to the prom with her or
He's
something?
talking about Elon's child.
Oh, and I'm like, what is
isn't the
going on?
child's name Beta?
I don't know. But like, okay.
Oh, no, it's X.
So
but
Gen
before
Beta.
X, I think there was a Beta.
So anyway, they have a new way of how they consume media, right? It's not like commercials.
Oh, yeah.
They aren't used to having, they could skip through everything. And if something on their phone isn't entertaining them, just go on another app, right? So then businesses have to, and that's why you were so forward thinking about the insurance thing with the car dealership, because it just gets, and sports has always done a good job of seeing Air Jordans run up and down a court.
Yeah.
And that's the commercial for it. And
Well, and brands are spending all this money and time trying to create content that really doesn't resonate because most people want to shop when they want to shop, right? And so now there's this proliferation of just like blatant influencer-based video where it's like it couldn't be less creative, on any scale. I'm not talking about the quality of production. I'm just talking about what's coming out of someone's mouth, right? Everyone is a star. Everyone thinks that they've got skills. And all of them are saying things that are super blatant about, I like this, drink it. It's like, come on, show a little bit of ingenuity. So I think that the idea is when we've worked with talent that you've worked with and I've worked with, and you can say, okay, let's create a program. And if the program's good, then the brand can connect to it, and then they get to basically prove. I've always said, I believe branded entertainment is a way of a brand to prove that, I understand who you are. I understand what your lifestyle is, and I want to contribute to the passion that drives your lifestyle.
Yeah.
If it's done that way, that's what skateboarding did. Yeah. And skateboarding created its own media channels because nobody knew how to talk to skaters except skaters. So they created their own magazine, they created their own videos, and they created and it was all. It wasn't commercials. There was promotional content in there. But when you're looking at a skate magazine and you're looking at ads that have to do with skateboard products, those aren't commercials. Those aren't ads. Those are content. So I just want to I still to this day dream about applying that principle to the mainstream. It's like, shouldn't Chevrolet put out ads that are about celebrating the love of driving a damn car?
Companies they run the risk of becoming too sanitized, and then and I think about, like, you see a commercial where obviously the budget was enormous.
Yeah.
And then the message was just, what was that? And you go, I can't even imagine if somebody pitched that to me at lowly Plymouth Rock TV, I'd be, that's not creative, not brave, nothing.
No,
it's boring.
Look at,
And then it's a Super Bowl ad.
The iconic ads of our generation when we were kind of like, we're coming into our own as a media society, right? Like the Apple ad with the hammer throw into the big screen. Right. They spent ridiculous amounts of money on that. I mean, shit, the video that you're probably going to show at one point in this episode of laser tag that I was in, you look at that ad. They spent some money on that. It was laser tag. Right. A little boom, boom, yeah, that's it. That was the game. They spent that was the era of advertising, right? And like, at least now, even if they don't spend tremendous amounts of money, how about just creating good storytelling?
Right.
Good storytelling that makes people that are going to buy that product realize that that brand cares about me, cares about what I do, cares about how I embrace the brand experience. Like, those are things that are important,
And the ability for us to then help mid to low range, range companies that don't have Madison Avenue budgets.
Yeah.
But then they think that creativity is not something available to them or being different.
See,
and
storytelling,
that's the opposite.
storytelling and creativity. You give Kevin Flynn or another comic, the ones that Jackie Flynn, doesn't matter. You give them a little bit of material and ask them to talk about a brand, it'll be the best content that anyone's ever seen. I actually think the comedy space is so exciting to work in, just like sports.
Yeah.
Sports is the same way. You know, you give Tony, I'd rather Tony not do little, toaster strudel ads,
Right.
but the reality is that, you give Tony something, people are going to pay attention because Tony's legit, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that sports have figured it out. I think, there's just great content
But
to
even
be
when
made.
sports decided, like the NFL said, no celebrating in the end zones, I'm like, you
Yeah,
know
that's
what?
crazy.
It's crazy because it's entertainment. Don't take yourself too seriously. And there's a policing in that world. Like if you're going to go
Yeah.
like Deion Sanders or whoever did that thing in the Dallas Cowboy Star, guess what? You're risking yourself getting popped running over the
But
middle.
at least that was still creative, right?
And then you go, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And then there you go. That's the policing of it. Just like if I plunk you in baseball, and then I know I'm going to get plunked, at least in the National League, if I'm up at bat.
That used to be part of the.
That was part of the game.
That
And
was
that
part of the
was
game, and we're
Celtics,
stripping
Pistons,
all of that away. It's
and
like,
it's-
how
right.
about talent in videos? Like, you see the stuff on TikTok. I'm sorry, there's some brilliant stuff on TikTok, right? But there's also some schlock on TikTok, and there's a lot of influencers that are schlock. Oh, buy this because it makes me feel really good inside. It's like, oh, that works. Damn, I got in the wrong industry.
Well, actually, you're right about this. Greater
Oh,
good.
this is amazing.
Greater good does make you feel good.
By the way,
inside.
this is just a testament to small, locally run companies where the owners are committed to making something that's just a tremendous product.
They had a passion for making beer.
yeah.
And it's like, hey, you
and
know
it
what?
comes through in every sip.
Yeah.
Does that sound
really
like?
Is, it really is good.
That sounded like a script.
Honestly,
it comes through in every sip.
We debuted this last week with Alex Sulkin. And
That's great. It's really good.
Cracked it open, and I was like, hey, whoa. And I was like, this is good. And I don't drink a lot, but having something that's fun and it's like, you support a local.
No, I love it.
It's fun.
I don't know. I think if we had a challenge, we could probably take it and go make some content that's specific to the lifestyle experience of this. But I think this is a lifestyle experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking to a buddy and digging in. I mean, it's funny. It's like we probably have already gone way over the typical episode. But the reality is that speaking and talking to friends and family and loved ones and sharing stories, I'm sorry, it's getting lost. I don't want to see the shortened version. I want to see the long version. I want to sit down at the table and cry and laugh and be moved and inspired. And it's like, that is storytelling. And it doesn't have to be long format. I'm not like trying to be old school or anything like that. But I do think it has to be a story. I think it has to have something.
A few weeks back, too, we had this artist, Brian Fox, who was on, who's a painter. He does amazing things with Vietnam veterans. And the veterans are involved in giving him the insight to the paintings because he's only in his 40s, maybe 50. And so, and just by chance, 5 years ago, I was in a studio at one of these sessions, and I never knew what to do with the video. And this guy who was an artillery guy and a helicopter pilot, fighter jet pilot, was deaf as a doornail because of the artillery, right?
Sure.
And he's going and he's talking, and his family is just explaining, like, we've never seen him talk about this kind of stuff. Therapeutic,
wow.
right? And the guy has since passed away, right? And 5 years ago, I've got this footage, so I'm able to interweave it into this podcast we did. And then in November, for the 250th anniversary of the Army, right? It's the U.S. Army. He's going to be doing a show and have all his military work be demonstrated there. But the point I'm making is that as each one of these guys goes down, their stories are gone too, right?
And
how great would it be for like your son to just be like, plop a camera down, Dad,
100%,
talk to you.
100%.
And then wouldn't you love that? For your
But
brand?
it's also, the story that I'll tell, and it's going to go back to the comics, but I've been lucky enough to work with talented people, one
You're
of
welcome.
which,
You're welcome.
yeah, you're up there. One of which is Tom Cotter. Tom Cotter is just incredibly talented, right? Just a great comic, second place, America's Got Talent. But at the end of the day, like one of the things, so as Oktane, we dedicate a lot of time to American Cancer Society because I'm a cancer survivor. Prostate, yeah, prostate cancer.
Okay.
And so this was my way of giving back. And Tom did me the service of getting involved with the event that we do down in Tampa called the Cattle Barons Ball. And so I developed a concept leading up to the event that was basically stories, one-to-one stories with people that are 1 degree of separation from cancer, whether their spouse got it, their child got it, whatever. Anyway, so it was a series, and it was very emotional. But Tom, just like so many of the comics that we're talking about, has this amazing ability to get honest and real, and even at times like emotional, and then turn around and make something that's lighthearted and funny. So you have this really cool mix.
It's like a pressure release.
Yeah,
I
just think comics know how to talk to people in general, right? And so one woman that we interviewed, and she's just an incredible inspiration. She donates her time to drive people that are going through treatment to the doctor, waits there until they're done, takes them home, drives them back again, donates her time. And everyone was like, this woman's incredible. They knew that she should be the focal point of a discussion, right? But they didn't know why. And so we get this going, and we're having this discussion, and Tom's doing a tremendous job, and it comes out that nobody even knew that her son had died of cancer, and this was her way of giving back to deal with the emotional impact of losing a child, which is, there's got to be nothing like, there can't be anything that's even close to that, right? And it was just this, it was at that time that I realized stories need to be told. Stories need to be told of people that aren't saying, this is what I ate for dinner, or look at me, I look so pretty in my bathing suit, or worse. But people that actually have real stories to tell, that have real life experiences to share, and that are going to keep us riveted as we watch their story unfold. And brands that are smart enough to say, I'm going to attach my brand to that kind of authenticity, are going to win. I believe that, and if it doesn't play out, I'd rather still believe that.
Well, and if a brand or a company isn't smart enough to see that, oh well. But like even just from the standpoint of me to my son, to his son, to their
legacy.
Son, and it doesn't even have to be something like, oh, I won a Pulitzer Prize, or I shot down 18 Nazis in a biplane in World War II. It's more so of just like, where did we come from? What were the struggles? And you see there's an app out right now which is remarkable, where you see old photos and they can come to life in the person, and it's like it's breathtaking, right? But that's what we have right now, is we have the ability to
and that emotional, inspirational human spirit is the one aspect of AI that hasn't caught up. AI can do a lot of things. It's amazing. But what it can't do is really create that emotional impact that we're looking for, and we need as a society. And I think we've really become gluttons for the negative side. Let's be honest. On every side of the spectrum, right? We're all just digging the hatred and the divisiveness. But what brings us together is when you're sitting around and you get a story that just moves you to the point where you're not worried that you've got tears running down your eyes. You're not worried that you've got chills on your neck. It's like it touches you. And that is something that storytelling has always done. And if that's what we're committed to at Oktane Media in our new relationship with Plymouth Rock TV and doing this, okay, I can live there. And I don't have to be, the media mogul and all those things that go with it. Because if you touch lives and you touch enough of them with great content and great storytelling, then I think we've accomplished our goal.
Even what a great gift it would be to have an opportunity, because we're here, I got time, grandson interviewing their grandfather, and they give it to their family for Christmas. And again, it might seem silly at the time, but what a treasure that would be.
Yeah, not for the family after that person's lost.
Life is, we leave and then we're forgotten.
Yeah.
And what a gift that could be.
No, legacy media is going to be a big thing. You watch. It's going to be something where you tell the story of your family. My wife put together, to celebrate her mom, a cookbook. She was Italian and she was a cook, and she had all these recipes. So she put together a cookbook and gave it to the grandkids.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah. Simple, but really amazing.
And cherished forever.
Oh, 100%. So if you create the video equivalent of that, let's do that. Let's do it all day long.
Well, Ken Park, you know what? Speaking of family, I want to get you back to your family. You've got a grandson up in the Boston area. Do. And of course, we'll do a lot more of these. So I think if there are things that we didn't cover, we'll get to them.
Oh, there's lots of stories. And then we can turn the tables. I want to do the opposite.
Sure.
I want to interview your stories. Your stories haven't all come to the forefront.
Hey, buddy.
All right, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
The family.
Ken Park.
All right.
Everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.